We're back again, and we did say this week is going to be a celebration of Africans living in diaspora. The good thing is that they're all ready and raring to go, contributing not only to their host communities, but as well as their countries of birth. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. You know, Africans troop out to different parts of the world to have better lives. They are some of the most respected professionals in their fields. They cut across disciplines from science to technology, engineering, mathematics, sports, entertainment, medicine, law, you name it. Just while on the show, we started off by, talking about quite a number of things. And the big news now is that of a 13-year-old Nigerian signing a professional deal with McLaren in Formula One, making the headlines. His mother, a Nigerian, is a supermodel who broke out of Nigeria to carve a niche for herself in the United States. You know, there are hundreds of these African achievers in different parts of the world, but back home, the story hasn't really changed. Blessed with some of the best and finest minds, an abundance of natural resources, energetic, daring, and bubbly youthful population, Africa is not at where it should be. Its best minds leave the shores of the continent for greener pastures. Some of them gave back to the communities that made them, and so many do not. Many Africans in the diaspora have identified a problem with leadership, sometimes for their unwillingness to come and invest in the continent. So many others have invested, and the stories have been bittersweet. What's Africa's gain? Welcome. Today we're being joined by Dr. Omobolaji Oyebanjo Popoola, a consultant psychiatrist and addiction medicine, Georgia, the United States, and of course Rachel Mwakazi Skjaerepe. She's a projects development director at Mango Development Norway. She's originally from Kenya but living in Norway. Ladies, good to have both of you on Village Square Africa.
Thank you.
Well, Rachel, I'd like to start with you. It's not very really common to see Africans getting married to Europeans. How has it been for you as an African woman married to a European in Europe?
Actually, in Europe, it's quite common. So I would say it's okay because I think people are people, and you fall in love. You know, it's about love. So it's been good, interesting. I'm a very curious person, learning different cultures. And actually, I think if I have to say now or spill my private life, I've been married to Europeans twice, because when I was young, I was married to a German. And later in life, I've got married to a Norwegian. So I guess, yeah, I fell in love, and it's been an experience like any other couple can have, even when they're from the same race, because it's about what you make out of it. The joys are there, the challenges are there, but it's been a good experience. A lot of support in whatever I do from my husband. Yeah, so that's what I can say.
We'll come back to you so that we can also talk more about, we'll stretch it, because when we started this conversation, we had some other Africans living in diaspora telling us about their children's love for the continent, even though they have not stepped foot on the continent. That's really amazing. It tells a whole lot of what Africans in diaspora are doing for their very young. Let me come to Omobolaji. You know, there are lots of Africans in diaspora like yourself, and many are not giving back to their communities yet. But again, we'll look at what you all are doing in your various fields of endeavor. Tell us how it's been like working in the United States, being a Nigerian.
Thank you very much for the question. I've been here for almost, in the Western world for almost 30 years, and been in the US for slightly over 25 years. And I think working in my field has been rewarding. It's been encouraging. While practicing in Nigeria, obviously we didn't have all the necessary support and infrastructure to be able to practice in our field well. But on getting here, they have all those things. But the drawback is, with all the work you do over here, every time you do it, you remember that you went to school for free. Medical school was for free in Nigeria. And you always imagine that, when will our government get their acts together so that we can give back? There are many things that we could do for our people back in Africa, but if you sit down together and put your heads together with a group of other physicians, almost everyone wants to give back, but we don't feel the right infrastructure is there. And then there's another thing about working over here that is different from working at home. The people at home are appreciative. The relationship that you have with your patients is almost patriarchal. They listen to you. They really want you to help. There's no sense of entitlement. Over here, you always have to practice defensive medicine. You're watching your back. You want to make sure you keep the patient safe. But on the other hand, you don't want to miss something. It's because it's a litigious society. It makes you a little bit edgy. So in terms of practicing, even though it's rewarding in terms of technology-wise and maybe remuneration, there's nothing as being able to treat your patients at home if the government can make the environment conducive and make medicine worth practicing.
I like the way you put it, because if there's a conditionality clause there, because it tells a whole lot that the government needs to really come in. When we started this conversation, virtually everyone we spoke to are on the same, line of thoughts, saying back home on the continent, the government or the leadership needs to pretty much do, more to help those in diaspora have a seamless, platform to weigh in to help in the continent. Let me come in again here quickly. Rachel, there are times, definitely, I'm quite sure you would want to look towards Kenya. What are the drawbacks? You've been in Europe. In giving back, there must be some challenges you've experienced as a Kenyan living in Europe.
Yeah, initially I would say there were the usual challenges. You really desire to do much, to give back, maybe to get the people to maybe be active in some business or something, especially in rural communities, so that you can get them away from dependency. And it wasn't so easy to work that way because, of course, there are needs, and maybe that money would end up for something else. And that's the story of a lot of diasporans. However, now with the technology and the tools which we have, it's really been quite slowly, it's smoothening. And I think with the challenges and difficulties, like what I've experienced last year during in the onset of the pandemic, where a lot of people in informal jobs did not have, could not go to work. And of course, there was need to support more people. But for me, I took advantage of it to ask people to work. So I was able to set up some things or launch some of the things that I've always desired to do, but not through aid. But rather I was able to move people to get them jobs, even if it's just some of them temporary, which some of them have turned to permanent jobs, because I realized there's so much skill, so much talent, which needs to be nurtured and to be kept. So I would say my experience from the past year has really shifted, where I was very skeptic because of past experiences. I'm now very optimistic that we are on the the right track. And this has been possible just because of utilizing, for example, our Kenyan M-Pesa, which enables us to transfer money to mobile wallets. So I cut off the issue of maybe, I think I restored a lot of trust in that when people work, they know they're definitely going to get their money. But at the same time, utilizing things as simple as Zoom, which you're using today, and WhatsApp, to be able to see what's going on, what the people are doing, just basically helping people more into transparency and accountability. But I realized it starts with me here, because normally a lot of times we can blame people and say, you know, when you send money, it's used for something else. But there are times also there are people, they work for you and you don't pay them. So balancing that, it's just a matter of balance. So I would say there is, I'm very optimistic.
I think optimism is the key word there, and quite a number of Africans living in diaspora have also spoke glowingly about such, optimism. Let me bring in Omobola. Yeah, you know, listening to Rachel, it looks like irrespective of where you're from on the continent, we share similar experiences, especially when it relates to people back home on the continent. Tell us how it's been like, trying to connect with your roots, because I realize that in as much as you've been away for many years, there's still a connection with your roots. That's an amazing one. How have you been able to keep up with that?
If it hadn't been for COVID, I'd be in Lagos by now.
Oh.
I usually am in Lagos at least 1 to 2 times a year. I participate in a lot of programs, outreach programs, educating people on mental illnesses. I connect with a lot of people doing good work. The last time I went home, I actually renewed my license with the hope of probably setting up something on telemedicine. Right now, I'm the director of Concordial Journal, which is a magazine trying to inform Africans also about things going on in Africa and things going on in diaspora, and helping them see Africa in a different light and showing them, showcasing the opportunities in Africa. So my heart belongs to Africa. My heart belongs to Nigeria. If it hadn't been for all the things I have over here, believe me, and I will be in Nigeria. I think there's no place like home. I always say that I went to medical school for free. I mean, there's nobody who's going to build Nigeria like Nigerians will build Nigerians. If you look at the history of the Western world and the relationship with Africa, we have to take care of ourselves. And it becomes obvious with each passing day.
Well, we have to take care of ourselves. Quite an instructive one there, Omobola. Rachel, she said it's our job, Africans, everyone, whether you are outside or within the continent, to pull everyone up and see that the continent is running smoothly. Now, there are influx of Africans, moving outside the continent, especially those who are illegally, taking such trips. Mostly they end up being victims of human trafficking. How do we start helping, these individuals and even governments on both sides, the receiving government and the government back home in Africa, to see that these people don't end up, losing their lives or losing their dignity as humans?
Yes, all right. I think right now it's a matter of reflecting on all that. We have to think they are chasing something. What are they looking for? They're looking for greener pastures. They're not on an adventure trip that we are going to try and get on the boats over the Atlantic and get somewhere else. They are in need of green pastures. We know that there is a huge population of youth in Africa. Almost 70% are youth, if I'm not wrong. And there are no jobs. We have the issue of unemployment and also underemployment. Yeah, so these are factors that are leading them to want to migrate. And of course, when they see, the talk has been a lot of people, they see living in the diaspora opens for you more opportunities, and you can just have just a job, even if you're not trained, maybe, and make it. So I think that's what luring them here. But if we could help to create more jobs, and it would really, I think, help towards solving this issue of migration and loss of lives. I cringe. I cry when I see pictures like the ones which you have just shown. It's very moving. It's very touching. But I believe the solution is in Africa. We can't solve this issue by depending, for example, on aid and all those things. So yes, as Dr. Omobolaji said, our governments, they have to get their things together. They have to get their act together. And with the support, they have done a lot. I mean, Africa has really gone far. It has been built by people who are in the continent. All those structures, it's not we who are outside. We have contributed and we can still contribute. We have our part to play. But the solutions of Africa will come from inside Africa. Yeah, and we have to be on board to participate, to play our parts. But we also need the goodwill. We need to be welcomed. Sometimes you're even fighting to be able to do something in your own country that you think, okay, when I can do it, it's going to help a few more people. At least you can't save everybody, but at least if I touch a few, she touches a few, and many other millions of African diaspora out there, they are ready. Diaspora talks, while we are here in the diaspora, everybody desires to see, to participate in development. And we need that that space can really be opened, that it can be facilitated, that the governments can leverage on what we bring on board, because it's now, they have to see it now as gaining back the brains again. It's more of brain gain, yeah, because now a lot of brains have been drained out. There are a lot in the continent, so much that some have to move out to search where they're going to be utilized. That's my take on that.
Rachel and Omobolaji, both of you have raised a very important aspect, and it has to do with the people of the continent having the power to uplift the continent and individuals, in as much as truly the visual we just saw now really touches on a very sore point in our lives as Africans. We still have to look inward and ask the big question, as Rachel puts it. They're not on an expedition. They're seeking something. Something definitely must have pushed anyone to get on even a balloon on the sea to cross into Europe or somewhere else. Now, Omobolaji, help us here, because you're a mental health expert as well. Let's start talking again. Some of the the trauma some Africans go through in the hands of those who traffic these people out of the continent.
In terms of the trauma, I think that it's not even just those people who traffic them out. I think that even coming to America is traumatic, because you lose your identity and you lose yourself, you lose your family members, you lose your environment, you lose the culture, and you have to learn to assimilate and find out who you are again. So those of us that even came in legally, we struggle with that. Many people struggle with that subconsciously, and they don't know that they have been through such a traumatic experience. So imagine those who come through that way. There are many times they're deceived. Nobody ever tells them that they're going to have to get on a raft or they're going to have to swim in shark-infested water. But there's a lack of hope. The hopelessness makes them take on this journey. And during this journey, they are traumatized, they're raped, some of them are robbed, they watch many of their mates die. And so by the time they get into the wherever their destination is, they now have to face the trauma of, oh, actually the streets are not paved with gold. They have to face the reality that maybe they might not be able to stay in a regular apartment. They might have to get 10 people in an apartment. They lose their identity. And the sad thing is that while the resilient ones end up making it, there are many destinies that have been lost by coming to the Western world. I wish there was a way we could tell them that, you know what, stay back there. The money you're going to use to come in here, you can invest it. If you find the right trade, you can invest it and do something good over there. The rigors of going through the immigration process, sometimes it takes as long as 10 years to be legalized in another country. Most of the time they have to live in the shadows. They have to run every time they see the police. I mean, it's very hard. And then eventually get the papers, which has set them back maybe another 10 years. Then by the time they're able to get the papers, then they have to go to school to get into the system. So it is not easy. And unfortunately, the culture we come from, we don't want to recognize mental illnesses. We don't want to admit that somebody who is suffering from PTSD or depression or anxiety. There are many people on the streets of the Western world that are suffering from severe mental illnesses and they will not get help because of the taboo in our culture that, oh, you know what, if you say you're depressed or you say you're suicidal or you say you have PTSD, then something wrong with you, you're not strong enough. Let's not even take a cue from what recently happened in the royal family in England. The Rachel, I'm not on any side, but Rachel, Meghan found it so hard to assimilate. And this is what Africans go through every time. Look at what you described. That is the story of almost every African that goes out of the country. First, you have to prove yourself. Then some people say you're not good enough. And so even with all the glitz of the Buckingham Palace, she wanted to kill herself. And many Africans go through that. They don't know it. They just know that they're we're resilient, we keep pushing ourselves. They just keep going and going till you eventually find them dropping dead. So what might start as a mental illness eventually becomes a physical problem. Maybe they develop heart disease or high blood pressure or any of the stress-related disorders. So the trauma is there. It's really real. Even if you came in through the front door, it's real. Going to a place where nobody knows your name.
Let me jump in here. And Rachel, this is to you before I come back to Omobolaji. Isn't it amazing? Because listening to Omobolaji, one can readily, understand why many Africans, have such, powers to withstand some of these, psychological trauma to the extent that it looks as if they're superhumans. But listening to Omobolaji, it doesn't make them superhumans. So now let's start talking about, the way we can help first those that have arrived Europe, America, and places where we have people like yourselves. Do the government or the authorities reach out to some Africans like yourselves to help, these people who are already traumatized or are in dire straits and in need of someone maybe back home to have that connection?
Okay, you see, I think in Europe, we have slightly advantaged. The problems that Dr. Omobolaji has mentioned, they're real. And it's true that a lot of Africans or even other people from other nations who come as immigrants in Europe or maybe America, they face a lot of, they have to first of all find their way and find their spaces. At the same time here in Europe, I think the advantage which we have is that we are not so big populations of Africans like the way in North America. Yeah, so you will find like Norway is not a very big country. So it's easier for us to connect as Africans. And there are programs here which help us to have like somewhere where you can meet. They facilitate that we have social activities which we even construct ourselves that can really just help us to be together or to do things together, at the same time also to be able to integrate into the system. You know, through here we have the issue, we come from English-speaking countries, but we have to learn another language. For example, like here we have to learn Norwegian. When I was in Germany, I had to learn German. So this brings us together already as foreigners. So we have that contact, which becomes like also our safety net, or I have somebody who maybe I can talk to. At the same time, churches, we have freedom of religion here, so people gather in their churches, in their mosques, and that's where a lot of we Africans tend to look for immediately. We land here. So we have that network of taking care of each other. So I would say that's from this side of Europe, at least, that the government has facilitated us in that way. We are not restricted to meeting and having our own activities and getting to know each other. And also the health systems in Europe are also different. So we can make use of psychiatrists. Like Dr. Omobolaji has said, the problem is we don't take those facilities. We still tend to stigmatize people who say that they have mental illness. So from the side of the nations here and the governments here, I feel that they have structures which could support our well-being when we are here. When we come to other things like being integrated into jobs and something that is a totally different story.
Well, we'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll talk more on how you all are getting by, living in another, as they say, another man's country, another man's land, and how you've been able to also bring up your children, because it's really amazing to see children of African descent still, you know, proudly say, I'm an African, even when they haven't actually yet visited the continent. That's when we return. Join us again. Our home run here on VSA, right on News Central Television, and we've been celebrating Africans living in the diaspora, and today we have two beautiful African women with us on the show. But you know, on the continent, the remittances for 2020 stood at almost $40 billion. And that has actually reduced from previous years, showing the amount Africans living in diaspora bring back to their countries. Africans in diaspora are giving back, no doubt, to the government, but in the absence of good leadership and corruption, this has no direct, effect on the motherland. Some Africans have, however, invested heavily on the continent. Notable examples like Senegalese-American musician Akon, whose rural electrification project is bringing power to African homes, or Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri, who comes to the continent every year, like Omobolaji would come to Nigeria to pick the finest basketball talents. These people come back, they haven't actually been disconnected from their roots. So with the exports of Africans in the diaspora, more of these investments are expected on the continent. So we're going closer, to these people. And of course, let's start by asking Dr. Omobolaji quickly here, the thing here about children, I'm so excited when we talk about children, especially African children who have not yet visited home. Are your children interested, let's start with you, Omobolaji, in visiting at all, or even, thinking of coming to live in Africa?
They're resounding yes. When we started having kids, one of the things that was most important to us was to make sure they're rooted in their identity. You lose yourself, you don't know who you are and whose you are. So first thing we did was we gave them Yoruba names and all the African dishes you can think of in the house. When there's an opportunity for them to travel, they travel. They interact. We at our place of worship has a lot of Africans. We actually moved. Part of the reason why I moved from Kansas City to Georgia was to be close to my older sister who lives in Georgia, because we wanted to raise kids together. So they have families, they have friends who are Africans, and we also. When their grandmother used to visit, she made sure she taught them African ways. When they go back home to visit, they are so excited to learn about African things. For us, we're proud to be Africans. They have seen Africans do good things. They have examples of, it's important to show them Africans doing exploit here. When they laughed at them in school because of their name, we told them, go back there. Your name has a meaning. And so you have to make them proud of themselves. If you look at other communities over here, like the Asian, particularly the Indians and the Chinese, they're very proud of their culture. And they encourage their children to learn their culture. And this gives a sense of identity. If you look at what has happened, African Americans that were brought to America by slavery, one of the things that's happened is a loss of identity. If you don't know who you are or whose you are, how will you progress in life? So the first thing we did was to ground our children that, you're Africa first, and then you're American by birth. So if you ask my children, where are you from? Children, where are you from? They'll say we're Nigerian, but we're born in America, or we're America. There's nothing wrong with being in America because it offered us a lot of opportunities, but it's not at the expense of us wanting to distance ourselves from our culture and from where we come from. Because a lot of the things we learned growing up are still very, very useful over here. I think the best way to live over here is to bring the best of your culture and adopt the best of their culture. But to abandon where you're from, it's you'll do yourself a great disservice. And so again, our children have mixed well and have been exposed to the culture. I actually have one that doesn't mind moving home.
Well, again, I picked something there from you, Omobolaji, and that has to do with some synergy of the best of cultures. Pick what's good where you are at the moment and merge it with the good culture from where you originally, or your roots are like that of, Nigerians. I've actually seen what many Nigerians are doing, especially as you have highlighted in dishes and the culture in terms of respect, how to greet, knowing full well that this is the do's and the don'ts in the African culture. Rachel, help us here. Because the good thing here is that I have a Kenyan and a Nigerian. So let's see how it's been like raising, children of mixed parentage, which is quite different from what we've seen with Omobolaji. You are more or less half European children and half Kenyan. So tell us how it's been like bringing them up to know that, look, you have African blood in your veins.
Yeah, my children are very, very proud to be Kenyan. I mean, they've been raised by a Kenyan mother, who so they're really proudly Kenyan. They also, of course, are German. They grew up in Germany, but I believe that I had a lot of influence on them. So, and because they have visited Kenya ever since they were little children, they love Kenya. They love to be associated with Kenya. I'm so happy they are never ashamed of it. They love practically everything. And now as they are adults, they help me a lot, even with my work at Mango Development or in one of the businesses which we are running in Kenya. They're very much part of it. Recently, my daughter was telling me, we can't just wait for for borders to open. So we want travel. I want to go to Kenya. My son also told me he would love to go to Kenya. My husband wants to go to Kenya. I mean, they love it. So I think I've done something quite right there with the help of God in bringing them up. I'm very, very extremely proud of Kenya, extremely proud of Africa. I'm a Pan-Africanist. So my family gets it from me. I have so much on Africa in my home, from artwork, from sculptures, you name it. People laugh and think and say, is this a home or is it a gallery? It's more like a whole Africa. Yeah, apart from my background right now, but the rest of the house is really full of things which just remind us all of home.
Listening to both of you, what readily comes to mind is the love for the continent. No doubt, this is just not make-believe. But again, it's amazing to see that even non-Africans have started looking towards the continent, to the extent we see movies, being shot around the continent, about people around the continent, names on the continent. When these come out, how, does that make you feel, Omobolaji? We've had quite a number of movies in lately that has actually depicted the continent in a very bright color.
I'm proud of those movies, and I think that the government is missing an opportunity. There's an increase in interest by African Americans who were brought here by chattel slavery to find a place of belonging. Ghana has done well to commercialize that and encourage them to come home. We haven't done much in terms of that. With all the recent happenings with the past government, I mean, when I talk to my friends who are also professionals and are African Americans, many of them are saying, you know what, I just want to retire to Africa. But what is Nigeria doing about that? Ghana has a huge program, and every time I shake my head, I'm like, look at Nigeria missing an opportunity, because it'll be the best of both worlds. If you're able to offer them first a place to come and heal, because if you visit the homeland, you get closure, but that comes with good roads, accommodation, and security. And if you're also able to educate them about where they're from, their ancestors are from, you help them on one hand, but that's tourism for you on another hand. If you think about policies that can help, like people are now going out of the country, they're trying to invest in other passports. But there are Africans over here, African Americans over here, who are longing to have African passports so that they can have a sense of belonging to their roots. Ghana is doing fantastic when it comes to that, but we're not taking advantage of it. That could be, can you imagine us developing a tourism industry just to encourage them? And imagine the retired teachers, the retired professors, professors or doctors or engineering, coming back in here, bringing their skills back to Africa, buying property here, and then teaching part-time in our colleges. I shake my head all the time. So I think there's an opportunity we're missing. It's a good thing we're highlighting it, but to what end? They're highlighting all these things. They're making the African American want to return. But how is Africa ready for them? Are we ready to showcase Africa for them? Even our kids, many of our kids want to return home. Ordinary infrastructure we don't have. Many of the children they're being raised now, they are Afrocentric. Look at their hair. They don't want to carry any Chinese hair again. as one of my friends says, they don't want to carry Chinese hair. They want to belong. They want to return back to Africa. They want to do great for Africa. But what is our government doing to bring them back? So opportunities are there, but I'm not sure I think that our government is actually slipping through this big opportunity that this movies are offering us.
Well, I think no doubt, I think is a big point you've raised, and this brings us to looking at the future, of Africans, in Africa and Africans in diaspora, and how the continent can gain from this, exodus. Rachel, listening to Omobolaji, let's see if we can, start closing in on this discourse this evening. How well can, Africans ensure that irrespective of what the different governments across the continents are doing or not doing, we can start, like you as a Kenya, we know that tourism is quite big in Kenya as against what we've seen in Nigeria and other parts of the continent. What are those key things other countries on the continent can learn from what Kenya is doing now in terms of tourism?
Yes, I think every country has something which makes it, a product like our tourism product in Kenya, which we have tapped into the domestic tourism and really promoted it. And many countries have such opportunities even within themselves, because our countries are quite big. And I realized if Kenya can promote domestic tourism, any other country can actually do that, because it's also helping the people to get to know each other. Like Kenya with almost 42 tribes, this has been a great opportunity for people to travel around, get to know each other's culture more intensively. And I believe there will be a lot of spin-off effects that we are going to see more cohesion just based on this 1 year where domestic tourism has really been promoted. So other countries can borrow a leaf from that. There's still a lot to do anyway, even in Kenya. However, let me just move to what we, Kenyan diaspora, is doing to facilitate a lot of this. I like the mindset shift currently, where Kenyans are seeing the potential in pulling together their funds to do major development investments and to be able to bring the skills back home to Kenya. Like there is a really ambitious project by Kenyans, especially in the United States, and they have looped in Kenyans also from Europe, where people now have the possibility to invest towards a very big program that is going to create a whole town which is going to have facilities like labs and really high-level hospitals. And I think diasporans, Kenyan diaspora, are really embracing that. They are no longer caring which region in Kenya it's going to be built. They are happy it's being built in Kenya, and secondly, it's in Africa, and they're happy to give back. And I'm sure this is the discussions are, a lot of them are seeing now the opportunity, because it's by the diaspora that they can go back at least and serve even during their holidays. So the next will just be the policymakers to help facilitate all these things. Like I said initially, the goodwill from Kenyans in the diaspora is there. There is a solidarity. They want to do more. They want to see our country move forward. They are moving on from only remitting for consumptive expenses, and now really trying to see how they remit so that in future also when they retire, they can benefit.
Let me come to Omobolaji. Listening to you earlier, what readily comes to mind is the future and how gradually looks like the children, the very young, are changing the narrative. If you visit Nigeria quite often, once upon a time, an average Nigerian television or radio station would prefer to play European and American music on rotation. But it changed when we saw the movement by the very young in Nigeria, changing the narrative to the extent that now in America, where you are, Nigerian music is being played even by non-Nigerians, to the extent that now we have a Nigerian Grammy, winner. How does this make you feel, and what opportunities do you think we can latch onto in the world of entertainment to, further, bring the good culture of Africa to the world?
I think that in my experience, Africans are highly talented. They're very skillful people. I've had to do a lot of, going home, sometimes I stay for as long as a month working with them on different things. And they have a lot of skills. I wish that they had more people to invest in them to develop their skills. And as I said, the government is there to develop the roads and other infrastructure. But having said that, with Wizkid and Burna Boy winning the Emmy, we've been very proud of them. Initially, to be honest with you, I started hearing them in our daughter's bathroom. I didn't even know she used to listen to them. I'll pass by her bathroom sometimes and I'll hear her playing it on her radio. And then before long, I realized that almost all the African kids in her school and in her network, they listen to them. These children are different. This generation is different. They're not going to sit down and let anybody push them to the background. And they're doing exploits in the Western world. They're doing excellently well in school. I think government should find a way of, and it's the same thing in Nigeria. The kids in Nigeria, they know about so many things. I think it's time for the leaders and the parents to come together and give them opportunities. Look at what happened from Africa. Burna Boy came out of Africa. Wizkid came out of Africa. The same thing with many awards from Africa. Look at the most read nation. It's from Africa. We have a lot of good things in Africa. Look at our resources. They take cocoa from us, they bring it to the Western world and return it to us as chocolate. Most of the resources of the world are from Africa. I think it's time that Africa starts to watch out for itself, think for itself, and promote the children. Let's make sure at the very least that we promote their education. Give them the right infrastructure. Sometimes when you watch this Yahoo boys and they tell you what they do to get things out of people's accounts, you say to yourself that these guys are so brilliant. What if somebody gave them a good school to attend where they channeled their intelligence for good? So whether we like it or not, we have a lot of, it's almost like Africa is a tree with a lot of rotten. If you don't harness the fruit quickly, we'll let a lot of them get rotten on the tree. There are opportunities in Africa, and whatever anybody knows to do it. As I said, there are a lot of brilliant people doing great things when I go home. It's just that what will normally take us a day to do here, because of infrastructure deficiencies, might take them 2 weeks. So or they might say, we're expecting this to come today, and then there's traffic on the road. It's just crazy. These people are gifted and talented, and I think it's time for all of us to start fighting for our future. Look at what happened recently. They told us they didn't want us here. No matter how educated you are or how rich you are. But the last government that left made it very clear that we weren't wanted here. And I'm sure if many people had the right opportunities at home, they would have returned home. So I think we just need to make sure that our children don't go through the same fate we have gone through. We all have to work together to build an Africa that the children would like to come back and develop. And then the people in Africa can also take advantage of the system and build up Africa.
Well, looks like a fine place, but before we wrap up, let me hear the closing, remark from Rachel. How optimistic are you seeing that the continent, gets better, knowing full well that we have a whole long way to go?
All right. I'm still very, very optimistic. And we actually, like anywhere in the world, there is still a lot to do, especially now with this pandemic. There will be a lot of catching up to do from really many nations in the world. We have the potential in Africa. We've got lots and lots of raw materials. It's just hopefully that now the governments will start taking diaspora seriously and see them more as potential development partners who can invest even in the area of manufacturing, for example, because we need to process these raw materials, turn them to to goods, and diaspora can come in to that. I know raising that capital as a pool of people together is not as hard as if it is an individual, and they have to see this type of development partnerships with diaspora. They have to realize that nobody else is going to really be interested in developing Africa with a clean-hearted interest like the Africans themselves. So they have to take it when the opportunity is here, when the diaspora is saying, please, we want to be part of building Africa. We want to give back. So they just have to stop looking at development matters only some of them see it as threats to their political careers. They have to see that diasporans want to invest for posterity. It's not even for us. It's for future generations, because we have maybe after long years of living here, 20, almost 29 years on my side. So our lives have been established here, and now we are saying, all right, we have nephews, we have nieces, we have future generations.
Absolutely.
How can we help that Africa, that the story changes, that we no longer in future, there are no people drowning, trying to run away from this great continent of Africa and leaving all the opportunities to be grabbed by anybody else. So we want to see that our commodities, that our raw materials are processed in Africa, and then we can participate in the export market. We want to be
no doubt. I think that's a fine place for us to leave it there, Rachel Mwakazi and Dr. Omobolaji Popoola. Many thanks to both of you. The thing here is that the continent remains the world's biggest single base of human and natural resources, as highlighted by both of you. Like her best minds, her best resources are also taken abroad, leaving the continent depleted. But with you all out there thinking towards the continent, we are assured of a better future for the continent. Together only can we rise. Many thanks again for joining us, ladies. And the conversation continues here on The Square tomorrow. I'm Sulaiman. I'll see you there.